shared it on one of my wrestling groups. Hello, my bad. Yeah.
Hey guys, we're live right now. Oh man, sorry, just going through some things. Let's go into our little intro. Hey guys, welcome to another episode 24. Wow, episode 24 of Reels and Heels. Oh man, who would have thought?
Hey.
Apparently time goes fast.
Yeah, it's nice to know that next week will be our 25th episode. Yeah. That's a milestone for a podcast. I guess you got to think COVID. I mean, we've all been stuck at home, so.
Yep.
So today we're talking tag team wrestling, which, growing up in the 80s, tag team was super huge. I mean, I remember when a lot of the single guys got together, like Hogan and Savage, and created the Mega Powers, and then even Savage and Warrior had a team for a bit there.
Yes, I remember that.
And of course, we all know teams like the Rockers, that gave us Shawn Michaels and, that other guy that nobody really remembers. Oh, man. Today we're joined by Hennessy Williams, man. This guy's got some great comedy.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
And, of course, the lovely Willow. Nicole will be here in just a minute. She just got home from the other job. So, but Hennessy, go ahead and plug, a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into our main topic.
Oh man, where do I start? You said you grew up in the 80s, so I grew up in the 90s, so you got a little bit of time on me. But I'm an embodiment of 80s and 90s culture. A Renaissance man, if you will. I'm a professional air guitarist, ranked top 10 in the country. Thank you. Also made an appearance in the recently appeared Bill and Ted Face the Music.
Nice.
Right. So,
Can I just say how awesome that movie is?
It's funny.
That movie is so good. It's what we needed.
If you like Bill and Ted, it's perfect. And it's really, and it gives you opportunity to do more if you really want to. But yeah. So, but I actually dabbled in wrestling myself. I say dabbled because I actually couldn't afford it. I was in college, so I went by the name of The Talk. I wrestled and trained for NWA Virginia. I did that for almost a year, but then I ran out of funds. That monthly payment can be.
Yeah, I looked into just pricing for wrestling school, and it's not cheap.
No, it's not. And
that's crazy. You think that there would be a little bit of more funding available for something like that?
It's not cheap, and it's also a lot of training. Like when I first saw that there was nothing under the mat, like board and plywood or whatever they could find, I thought there was a trampoline under the mat growing up.
You know what? I think a lot of us actually thought it was just a trampoline.
Right. So, but either way, I have so much respect for wrestling. I love wrestling. I've watched wrestling my entire life. I got suspended from school because my assistant principal thought NWO was a real gang. That was fun.
You know what though? That actually was a true story. I was seeing kids being told to turn their NWO shirts inside out or take them off.
Yep. Yeah, we were jumping jabronis. We were jumping jabronis in the locker area, though. We got caught. That was our thing to do.
The true story. I was in my junior year, and like in between classes, everybody would be hanging out in the hallways in front of the classroom, and like people would be like stone cold stunnering each other and stuff.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Out of nowhere, it was like the RKO or the RKO.
Right. Sweet chin music was the best and most dangerous one. A couple concussions happened at our school because of people doing that as well. So, oh well. Either way, I have so much respect for wrestling, especially tag team wrestling, which was what I wanted to focus on when I was a wrestler. I don't even want to call myself a wrestler in training. Yeah, the 90s, you talk about the 80s where they had the more traditional teams that they had, people that have been together for long periods of time. And then you had the 90s when they started throwing people together for TV and hitting or missing sometimes. But we still got good ones. So.
Yeah. I think one of the best tag teams from the 90s, well, Nicole's actually wearing the shirt, and when she gets over here, you'll be able to see it. But I'll mention the other team, the Hardys. I think the Hardys were one of the best teams in the 90s. I mean, WCW had some pretty good tag teams, but there was just something about the WWF in the 90s that their tag team division. I mean, even ECW with like the Dudleys.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And Steve Candido, who was I mean, they had so many teams. The ECW was elusive to me because my mom would be tripping like after like 10 o'clock, TV off. So ECW came on at like 3 in the morning.
Yeah, well, I mean, ECW was pushing the TV limits on how much they could do.
Oh man, so I would always catch it like, oh man, ECW's on. It'd be like 2:30 in the morning, and I have to watch it with the subtitles. And oh man, but yeah, they had tag teams. The Dudley Boys are really the benchmark, really, for a team that stayed together for as long as they have. The Dudley Boys are amazing.
Yeah. I mean, a few of the other teams, I believe Perry Saturn was part of a team in ECW before he went solo. I want to say he was part of a team. I think they were called the Enforcers, if my memory serves right.
I'm looking it up. But yeah, because they had a couple. They had Just Incredible. They had a couple of people that were in like tag teams that were just there the whole existence of ECW. Yeah, the Enforcers.
Yeah, and then of course, when you go back into like the 80s, I had people mention the Hart Foundation, Bret Hart and Jim the Anvil Neidhart. They were, I mean, of course, anybody that knows wrestling, being trained by Stu Hart in the dungeon, that was some legit training. I mean, they had like people that weren't even like wrestlers that would go there, and I think it was like football players and other athletes, and they said that was the hardest training that they've ever done. Like Stu Hart, really.
I can only imagine.
I mean, if you read Chris Jericho's book, he talks about the dungeon a lot.
I don't even think that one day would be enough for me. I like being in the crowd watching men.
Well, I mean, the Harts were known for their strict regimes of training, and one of the top training schools was Bret and Owen Hart's dad. who trained both of them, and I'm pretty sure didn't their dad also train not Chris Jericho? Brain work for me, please.
Chris Benoit.
Chris Benoit, Jericho. I think Jericho was at the dungeon too.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I don't know if he got trained by his dad particularly though.
Yeah. You know, I say Chris Benoit, and I mean, I know everybody knows what happened. So, I mean, but I mean, you can't take away from what he did in wrestling because he was a great wrestler.
No. You can't.
I don't think it takes away. I think it might highlight the fact that we all need help. You know, like I think there was some serious underlying mental health issues that I think when that happened finally brought it to light for WWE and that sports entertainment industry. So
yeah, there's really no reason to ignore it, in my opinion. To act like he was never there and it never occurred, that's nonsense. If you want to tackle it, then tackle it head on and acknowledge, like you said, he had some mental issues going on that he even reached out to a couple people about, and they were there for him or not. But either way, to act like he never existed is not good for wrestling, in my opinion.
I think it would shortchange the industry to pretend that he never existed. I mean, he made a lot of important milestones, and he was a force to be reckoned with. I think, you know, to assume that he shouldn't exist or be given any kudos because of what happened sells his achievements before that short.
Yeah, and then, you know, which in a few weeks we'll talk about factions. You know, he was part of the Four Horsemen, which, you know, they wrestled as a faction, but they also wrestled as a tag team. You know, they would mix up the members and stuff. So Willow, you being up in Canada, I'm sure, you know, the Harts probably were the first tag team that you were introduced to.
Yes, but I also grew up in the magical time of the 80s where I remember a lot of really cool teams. The Bushwhackers was one of the teams that I it was one of our
good old Virginia too. Home sweet home.
So yeah, they were one of the teams that me and my sisters would root for, and of course the Harts would, and you know, any team that Hulk Hogan was a part of.
Yeah. Do you remember a team by the name of Demolition? You know, they had the whole makeup and
Animal and Hawk.
Well, that was right? the Road Warriors. Demolition.
Demolition, the other one.
Yeah.
Action Smash.
Yeah, and then when Sting and the Warrior first came in, they were called the Blade Runners.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, everybody had to do like the face paint and, you know.
Yeah, that was run of the mill.
I just had to bring this up because they were like.
I think because of their craziness is what we loved the most about them was, you know, it was like a no holds bar kind of thing. As soon as they showed up, they destroyed everybody in the ring. So it was fun.
And it was funny because before they went to WWF, they were known as the sheep herders. Yeah, didn't speak.
Sorry.
They're from Australia, New Zealand, so you know that was their thing. But they were actually like a legitimate tag team, and then when they came in as the Bushwhackers, they kind of became like a comedy act. But I mean, this was the '80s, so everybody had like these over the top gimmicks.
There was a lot of outlandishness in the '80s, and I think that like even in the '90s, there was still a lot of lot of crazy, but I think it kind of like settled into more tag teams that were like of substance that actually wrestled, and it wasn't just about the crazy.
Well, it was like
stuff.
the young professor a few weeks back had said, like in the 90s, there were still like those gimmicks. You had like the trash man, Duke the Dumpster Droese, who was the garbage man. And you had people like the Goon, who was the hockey player. And then, like Skinner. I don't know if you remember Skinner. He,
they started to kind of fall out of those characters and started using like real names, like Jeff Hardy. Not Hardy, not the garbage man, and the working man, and you could anything. You could the repo man. Who was my dude? He was good.
Yeah, well, it was funny because the repo man was from Demolition. He was just repackaged, that he was just in it, as a veteran, helping the up and comers at that time. So that was pretty much his job. It's like the Brooklyn Brawler. He's one of those guys that just, he was a jobber, but he had, experience. And so that was his job to help the young up and comers.
It was always funny though, when he would come out, because traditionally he kind of had a cult following.
I know, like so he came out with this New York shirt that was all ripped. And
come out on like Sunday Night Heat or something like that, and you just kind of like, you knew his whole purpose for being there, but you just enjoyed the fact that he enjoyed it so much. You could tell it like exuded off of him.
I guess gotta say, this was a great team.
Mm-hmm. Boys, yeah.
Yeah, and at that time they were both in WWF, and then they also went to WCW, and they won the tag team championships in both companies.
Well, and somebody previously said the Rock and Roll Express.
Oh yeah, and then the Midnight Express, and then they had the Orient Express. I mean,
but I think that sometimes we forget, like, they're traditional tag teams, and then there's tag teams that get like stuck together, and so.
Well, there's like
when they were part of a faction, like, because Edge and Christian came in with Gangrel, and they were the Brood.
Well, Edge came in by himself at first.
But he was not on the main card. He was
the undercard. And with Gangrel, because Gangrel at that time, he was sort of a veteran.
When he was pretty well known. And so, like, when they put them all together, they all came out as the Brood, and then they kind of, when Gangrel left, then they became Edge and Christian. And it was for a while the broody, whatever, and then it was the 5-second pose and more of the like just the fun stuff. And so because they were so fun, I think that people were interested in them because they do the wild and crazy stuff, but they also could really wrestle. And they brought matches to the table that killed at every card. Like, when you paired them up with the Hardys, you knew you were going to get a match.
And then throw in the Dudleys.
And you knew that they would bridge like all the areas of magic of wrestling. It was like you would get the high flyers, and you would get the real like crazy, Bubba get the tables, or Devon or whoever it was. I can't remember. Somebody's get the tables. And so you just knew that it was going to be an event, and it was going to be an event all by itself.
Yeah.
And so I was always a fan of the TLC matches that they would have. And so still to this day, I haven't worn this shirt in a while. It's kind of choking me, but I love them, and they were totally my favorite. And Edge is still my favorite to this day, but. Yeah.
So let's ask this: what makes a great tag team? And I'll start with you, Hennessy.
Really, chemistry in the ring, chemistry outside of the ring. I mean, there was always that big guy, little guy. One like high flyer, one on the ground and pound. But it doesn't need to be that way. Just good chemistry in the ring, basically finishing each other's sentences, which is what you should be doing in the ring. You shouldn't have to whisper everything. You should know where it's going. Um, but also, entertainment. This is a show, baby. Like it looked good, putting on a great match, but you need to keep the fans involved. And I mean, even if you look at the Rockies, that's a good example. We always give Marty Jannetty like that other guy, but he wasn't really that other guy when you watch the Rockies. Like he brought something to the table. The way that he would rock his hair and get hyped up, the crowd got into it. He was an integral part of that team. Um, but those are the two main things to me. I mean, look at Undertaker and Kane. They have the slowest matches ever sometimes, and it's still entertaining. And it's still entertaining now.
Well, they both have like 3-hour entrances too. So.
Like really,
funny, the Undertaker even jokes about his entrance, like when he first saw the stage for WrestleMania 33 in Orlando, and he's like, "Yeah, like it took me 5 hours to get to the ring. That's why he came up halfway in the ramp, so he didn't have to come all the way down."
Yeah, like if you watch like Typhoon and Earthquake from the early '90s, a team that if you watch them, they could move. They weren't even a ground and pound. Like they could move for big guys, like really well. So just chemistry. Those kind of the teams that don't have it. We saw the Ascension go through NXT and dominate, and then get to the next level and couldn't even connect. You got to learn with the crowd.
Yeah. Speaking of like teams today that know how to work a crowd and are pretty good in the ring, let's talk about Breezango. I mean, look at them. I mean, they're the reigning tag team champions of NXT right now. It took them 13 years to get to where they are, but they're a great team and they're fun to watch.
I think it's when your gimmicks kind of mesh too, that's where, you kind of have that everybody has their personality, but they come together for this totally different, take on it. And I think that's why people like Breezango and Edge and Christian, and why people enjoyed the Hardys is that, Jeff would do the crazy shit and fly from, the 30-story whatever, and Matt would be on the ground. You knew that they were still going to bring both of them together. So chemistry is important. But I think that sometimes it's just the fun of poking fun at each other. Like I love the Street Profits just for their backstage stuff. Like I just love when they interact around other people.
Dude, they want the smoke,
They are.
I did not think they were going to be successful on main roster, and they've actually proved me wrong for the most part. Because they've also had decent matches, but they've been able to step into that little New Day slot that was left because they've all been hurt. And I'm sure New Day doesn't really care that much. But yeah, I'm with you. Street Profits, they're definitely entertaining. And even Otis, what's their name? Otis and the other guy?
Tucker Knight, Heavy Machinery.
Right. They're an old school kind of style team. They're not, I mean, it's just two big roly-poly guys who can work the crowd. I mean,
and Otis, I think, is really blown up. I mean,
I think there's that whole conversation about, the nice guy should get the girl, and why not it be a hottie? Like, why not it be that? So it puts him in this very comedic but very real, headspace, I think, for most of us. It's nice to see something like that happen too.
Oh man, like the whole Otis Mandy Rose thing is brilliant, I think.
But I think it shines a lot of light on the fact that we often talk about girls just being the arm candy, but she's this picture of desire, but she does fall for the guy that is the genuine nice guy. Like, even if it's not real, I mean, even if it's just a the thing that's written. It's like it gives some airtime to the guys that don't get that kind of play. Like, yes, he's a great wrestler and they do work a crowd really well, but he's not considered, like, give me a
He's
name.
not the upper echelon
You know?
guy. He's not a top. He's not a draw. Even though nobody looks at the card and says, "Oh, Otis is wrestling."
Yeah.
I mean, they might now.
Yeah.
How do you guys feel about Doink and Dink and the rest of their team?
Oh my god.
I don't know.
I know clowns creep people out, but I can't. I have to say that they were a very entertaining team. Whenever they would
that
show
whole
up.
thing when Doink the Clown came out with all of those like little clowns, that was just crazy. And then Jared the King Lawler had the little kings. Oh my god.
I never really understood any of that, but like I wasn't a clown. Like I don't like clowns. Clowns do creep me out. So like when he came out, I was like, he looks a little too much like it for me. Bye. Like I was done.
Yeah. And then you have there's a team that arguably could potentially be one of the best teams of all time, and that's the Young Bucks, who grew up with the likes of the Hardys and Edge and Christian, and they looked up to like Shawn Michaels from the 90s and stuff. High flying. Do you have an opinion on the Young Bucks?
Hennessy. I'll throw that to you because I'm more old school, early 90s. Unfortunately, I stopped watching wrestling after like 2002 or whatever. So I have a huge gap between 90s, 95, 90 to 2000. So.
well,
they're at AEW, right?
They're part of AEW. They're huge indie darlings, is what you would call them. They were starting up AEW. They were big in Ring of Honor, New Japan, and multiple indie circuits across the country, in the world. I highly suggest going to YouTube and looking up Young Bucks versus the Hardys from Ring of Honor. It was a ladder match. It was the night before WrestleMania 33 when the Hardys made their surprise return to WWE. You'll see that's a great match.
I was supposed to be at that match, and I seriously forgot to buy the tickets. Like, just, and then it was too late. Like, it was like immediately gone. Like, But I went to WrestleCon that morning. The Hardy Boys have been hot in their careers, but I don't know if they've ever been hotter than they were that weekend. Like, the Hardy Boys were the draw of that WrestleMania, the story of that WrestleMania. That they might or might not be coming back. And then
we were at their tailgate party.
That morning of
their
WrestleMania.
indie tailgate party that morning, and then we went to Access that afternoon. And so when we get home, like that whole weekend, I was like, it would be great if they were like around, because I didn't think they were coming back. And then when their music hit, I thought I was going to lose my mind. I was sitting in my living room, and I was like,
and it was funny because the guys out in the ring, this came out afterwards. The guys in the ring didn't know that the Hardys were added to the match. It was a surprise to them too. So the look on their face would be genuine. So I loved how the New Day teased as like Kofi started walking forward, like it was going to be them, right. And then they stepped aside and the Hardys music. I was told that you could hear that pop from downtown Orlando. Like, I know it wasn't,
it's not far.
It's not far, but it was that loud that you could hear the cheers.
Wow.
Oh yeah, we were ready for it.
It was loud on TV. Like, just listening to it from in a surround sound, it was like you could hear it, like the back, even in the mics and stuff. It was crazy.
Yeah, he was so hot, and when he was doing the broken Matt Hardy, like he was. I don't think there's been a time Matt Hardy's ever been bigger than this moment. That was great. That was a great, and they're still big. He got hurt. He got hurt the other day, didn't he? Matt Hardy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he did. He's on the Man for Recovery. But Jeff is now in, the IC champion.
Oh, he always.
But so is supposedly Sami Zayn. So he's in a good feud there. I think that's going to be an interesting match. I don't even think they actually have worked together. So I love to see how this plays out.
I think the thing that always got me is like, and I love the Hardy Boys as much as the next person that was a 90s girl. Like a 90s girl in wrestling, if you didn't like Matt Hardy or Edge and Christian or, any of that group, you were probably not really a fan. So at the end of the day, like,
well, the New Age Outlaws,
I mean, don't get me wrong, I love them both, but I always loved Jeff more. And it seemed like Jeff didn't have to talk. Like, Jeff had more personality just in the way he walked and just in the presentation overall of himself, that it seemed like Matt struggled a little bit with that until he found his own voice. Right. So when Matt when he did his broken, whole storyline, I think that kind of gave him freedom to be the cultivator of his own, personality at that point. And so I think that's what broke him through. And I think it also helped Jeff too, because I still think Jeff was he's very quiet still yet. And even now on the mic, he's still not.
Well, that whole thing was
very talkative, really. I mean, he just does what he does. And I
mean, that whole thing, they were, of course, an Impact at that time. And Matt had said that he felt like his love for the business was diminishing and he just felt stale. So he did, he talked to his wife and they came up with the idea. And then, of course, Jeff became Brother Nero and that thing took off. And nobody thought WWE would bring that story in. And then all of a sudden, you can't hide the signs, the delete. And, that first night at WrestleMania, he still wasn't. I mean, they were the Hardys, but he still made sure.
He didn't even bring that. Yeah. He didn't even.
But I think he was also free to have that too because it was his gimmick. He owned it.
Well, he was in a lawsuit with Impact over that because they said that they created it, and then it was the whole thing. But then it finally came over, and then
it worked for a little while.
I'm kind of glad they're separate now, though. Like, I'm kind of glad they're both in different places where they're doing things on their own. Only because I think that talent-wise, nobody feels like they're carrying each other. Nobody is going through all that stuff. Like, Jeff is finally clean and he's finally doing his thing. And Matt is doing his thing. And I think that that's where you separate the two. Like, Christian went over to,
he went to Impact.
And then TNA, right?
Same company. And then he became Christian Cage, and then he grew a following there. And when he came back, he got a loud pop when he came back.
And then
he was better when he came back. He was better for leaving.
I think that's because he was able to work other avenues for himself and become kind of the leading man for his own personality and his own story, because they did rely a lot on Edge. I think that he took a back seat to a lot of what Edge said and did, and those other things. Like, I think he was a clown too, and he had fun and he was enjoying himself, but I think he really rose to the occasion when he got to be himself.
Yeah. And then when he came back to WWE, he became, of course, world champion. He's definitely going to be in the Hall of Fame.
And
they keep messing with him. That's like a joke for them to never let Christian in, apparently.
I'm always kind of sad though when some people don't get any love. Like, I mean, I'm glad that Edge is in, but I think they should have inducted them the same year.
Yeah, they really should have. They should have got like inducted together first, and then Edge separately for his singles career. Their tag team career, in my opinion, more iconic than either of their singles careers. And Edge had a good career.
Well, I don't know. I would have to say Edge's rated R career.
It was like I said, it was good. It was good.
Lita, I think like that whole thing with Lita, when Lita came in and
then they brought in the real life drama between Edge and Matt Hardy and Lita,
and when all that was a situation, I think that kind of helped a little bit. But then I think that right around that time, there was some, like they were part of a faction. Like Lita was running with, the Hardys, and they had to cause friction so there'd be a storyline. But I think it was nice to have them interact with her on both fronts. Like it kind of added a little bit of spice, and it helped us see women that were actually wrestling at the time. Like, I'm sorry, but women wrestle now, and in the 90s there was so few that actually wrestled. Like, more of them would go out there and take their clothes off and roll around, and that's pretty much all they did. And so you had Beth Phoenix, Lita, and who else at that time?
Mickie
James. And they were really the wrestlers. Everybody else was...
Yeah, they had some bad divas back then. They were really doing that WWF diva search where they weren't even wrestlers at all. They were just models.
The bra and panties matches never interested me at all when it came to any of that, and it was just very, very odd that they went in that direction, and I'm glad that they're slowly pulling back from that now.
I think that was part of the sass of the 90s, and then they had to get serious about what was going to happen in the 2000s, because I think 2010 was when it really started to change, and it changed slow. And it was like, I think the onset of like Mae Young invitationals and things like that the women really started to get some real backing.
Yeah. And then, I mean, just like if you look at the wrestling industry the last couple of years, like, it started with like Hollywood, where the Me Too movement. Now it's the Me Too movement is in the wrestling industry. You have a lot of the female wrestlers coming out and saying, stuff going on, and so like the whole bra and panties thing wouldn't fly today at all.
No.
I think a lot of that doesn't fly now. I think it's a lot of women are deciding that we control our bodies and that we can decide how we want to do the things we want to do. But I think in the shortcomings, like I think a lot of times tag teams are what catapulted guys to become single talent that was like top card roster, like top card talent. Whereas, like if they were somewhere in the middle, they'd stay there. But when they were involved in a tag team, that would push them to the next level. And we didn't have that for women for a really long time.
Yeah, and then now you have get like the women tag team. I mean, can we just say Asuka and Kairi Sane? They were, I think, a great female tag team.
Yeah.
I think anything that Asuka touches is pretty much great. But
the iconic to me, I don't care.
And the Bellas, I mean, the Bellas did actually wrestle. Like there was a whole,
they made it through the gauntlet. We give them a hard time, but they weren't wrestlers, and they put the work in, and they became better than functional in the ring. That's a lot to say for people who were not wrestlers at all when they got signed. And really, the Bellas, for the whole women's movement, Paige, the Bellas, Paige really kind of was the one. They talk about the four horsewomen before them. AJ Lee, like all these. It started, like you said, slowly. Um, they're the ones who kind of started to move it from we're going to let these women roll around for 2 minutes to let's actually have some matches and let's do something. I mean, it really does help that Charlotte Flair gets a lot of crap for how much they push her. But when you think about her name, her pedigree, what she means to the industry, and the fact that she actually is a really good wrestler and one of the best women's wrestlers, that's an asset you need to use, regardless of what people feel about it. The name Flair, to have a woman be the new Flair, is perfect.
And you know what's funny is her dad says that she's a better wrestler than he'll ever be.
She's amazing. She's amazing.
You know, I can see that though, because there's a lot of show with, you know, a lot of showmanship and stuff with Ric Flair. And I'm not denouncing any of his talent at all, but
like
I think that
if you go back to like the 70s and 80s
talent,
and compare their matches, you can see a little similarity, but yeah, she totally is more athletic than.
And you don't see her. She talks the talk, but she walks the walk.
Yeah, like, for sure.
She doesn't just, you know, go out there and, you know, wave her cape around and you know, whatever. It's actually, she's in it to wrestle.
Right.
She's athletic. She's amazing. Like, she's one of the best athletes they have in the WWE.
Well, and then there's also women like.
Well, we talk about women that, you know, that are tag teams that are put together. But even though they were friends, Sasha and Bailey, I thought they were a great tag team.
Of course.
Well, and I think that they meshed well as personalities, and then they kind of like forced each other to be better. They were always testing each other and always making each other better, and I think that matters. I think Bailey is probably a better wrestler now than she was when she was single. You know, when she was the hugger, as opposed to now, whatever the hell she is. I don't know.
She's a fantastic heel.
Slightly crazy, a little over the top, but I think as far as athletics, I think, you know, she's better now. But I think because she was part of
a certain amount of crazy in order to be in wrestling. So
yeah, I think so.
I don't know. I kind of have to disagree with Alfred here. He's gone on to like shows outside of wrestling, like on ESPN and podcasts that have nothing to do with wrestling, and talk about how his daughter is much better in the ring than he'll ever be. She's very athletic. If you've ever seen like her workout stuff.
But does it have to be that though? Like, does it have to be even on the script? Maybe it's just a father that's really impressed by his daughter's skills. Like, I think that, you know, we give everybody who's a legacy shit. We give them all shit. Like they just rode the coattails of whoever. But it's when they finally do something that breaks that mold that, you know, people are like, oh, well, he's not just a legacy anymore. He actually has come into his own.
Like they give a lot of people gave Randy Orton.
Orton got a lot of shit at the beginning of his time. And now, I mean, people seek out to work with him because of the kind of wrestler he is, even though there's some commentary on how much of a douchebag he might have been. But, you know, and I like Randy Orton. I think he's amazing. However, I think that, you know, you get what you get with Charlotte. Like, I don't think there's a lot of lip service with that. I think that when he says that, you know, she's a better wrestler than he ever is, it's probably because he's very proud of her. And it comes directly from that. I don't think it comes from, you know, it's scripted and he has to say that. He might just be excited that she's done something so wonderful for herself.
Yeah.
Maybe because they're on a couple of the documentaries, it actually said that he wasn't that much of a father in the earlier.
You can watch that in his matches. Ric Flair's another one who knew about how to get over with the crowd without being, it's not all about, I mean, yes, wrestling is about the moves, but it's also about working the crowd. And he could
Yeah.
take a punch and take 4 steps to fall down. And that would funny and work the crowd better than maybe taking a punch and just falling. He knew how to make it
In
work.
wrestling, if you can have the crowd in your hand, you've already won.
Right.
And I think that's what catapulted
Ric Flair getting whooped for like 30 minutes. And then he got to a figure 4.
Shawn Michaels stole Ric Flair's corner thing, like where you go flying into the corner and do the flip. Because Ric Flair is really famous for that. When he does that thing, goes over the rope and
yeah.
And then you hit him with the clothesline as he's walking. Yep.
I think though that it's always fun to watch when they move from tag team to main card, like to be that main event person, and then you're like you watch them accomplish these things, and then you watch their personalities change over time. Because when we were watching the other day, I don't know what we were watching, and they were talking about evolution, like when they bring new guys in to work with the older veterans and then to kind of like groom them for their next steps. I forgot that Randy Orton was such a baby face. Like really he was so awkward at first. And now to see him, he's like he really is a consummate professional. Like as much as people may or may not like him, I still think that even though he's a heel, he is a heel that I enjoy.
If you watch him closely and look at his facial expressions when he's in the ring, you can tell he's working the ring.
You got what's y'all got? Rick Steiner over there? You got the Steiner brothers over there, biker?
The dog is just he's being ridiculous. It's raining here, so he acts like he wants to go outside, and then you open the door and he's like, I don't think so. Like I want to go out there. So I don't know why he's acting like a fruitcake. I don't know. He's crazy. But hey, Garrett.
Yeah.
3 seconds and I got to watch the chat. Oh, he's just going to come over here because he's being a ninny.
So here's something. When we're talking about legacy, let's talk about someone who just recently his father passed away. I think it was last week or maybe it was this week. The Road Dogg, Jesse James.
That's my guy.
His father, Bob Armstrong. The Armstrong is another wrestling family. He came in, was working with Jeff Jarrett as the roadie, and then you had Billy Gunn, who was part of the Smoking Guns, and then they had broken off, and then they were put together and became the New Age Outlaws.
The hot shit.
I mean, the New Age Outlaws, definitely top 5 best tag team of all time.
I think, and I don't know that it was necessarily their work in the ring. I think it was the shenanigans that took place after the ring. And some of the shit that happened in the ring, even they were like, what the hell? Which they couldn't get away with now.
That's the best thing about the Attitude Era and WCW. And we talked about the bras and panties matches, and WCW had the Nitro Girls. That's just where it was at. ECW had Francine and Beulah. Like that's just where it was at that point. And if you ask any, like that whole time we can't do none of that now. We can't have what was it, Insane Clown Posse and what was that they were with?
Vampiro.
Well, no, the WWF.
The Oddities.
Oh, okay.
Right.
I was like,
yeah, well, that the guy that was John Tenta, who was Earthquake. He was part of that group.
Okay. We can't be making fun of those people like that.
What was it?
who
Luna
was your dream tag team partner?
Vachon.
Okay, well, she was odd. Luna
Well,
Vachon was scary.
She also came from another, wrestling family.
Well, and I think maybe too, like you sometimes have to branch out and be your own person too. And I think that was the way she did it. She managed to be as crazy as possible, and it got her noticed.
Yeah, yep. Back then, you had to do it that way.
But I mean, I think that the Attitude Era was like a step to what we're doing now. I think it kind of gave people an opportunity to reinvent and say, okay, well, we're going to have this lull after the Attitude Era where they had to rethink how they were going to go about the next steps of the company and then really make something happen. Because
I think that the pandemic messed wrestling up, but I also think if you watch, I haven't really watched much AEW, but WWE, they're taking a lot of risk in their programming now, and it's forcing them to make changes. And the Thunderdome, I think, was a very good idea, and I think they could make it even better if they made it where the cameras moved. So, like, if I'm watching it, I move with the wrestler, so the wrestler can interact with that particular person on that particular video feed, even though you're not right in front of me. And I feel like they might be moving in that direction. They have WWE done a good job the last couple of months.
Yeah, the Thunderdome thing is where like you send in a request to actually be live on the screen as they're performing SmackDown and Raw.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
I think that part of it, I think, is after Edge's return at Royal Rumble and all of the pandemic happened, we didn't have a chance to give people the pop they deserved. Like,
Drew McIntyre,
I am sorry. I think Drew McIntyre got shafted because when he won that title, there should have been a million people in the stands cheering for that man because he'd worked so hard for it. But also, I think we're part of that. Like the universe and the people watching and the people that are there are part of that whole show. Right. Like we're watching the signs and we're watching the chants, and that's why they zoom in on people who are like freaking out. Like I remember when I watched the Hell in a Cell with Undertaker and Mick Foley, and when Mick Foley fell through the Hell in a Cell onto the tacks, and just as crazy as he was, like people were, you'd zoom in on people in the crowd and they were like what happened? And then they zoom in on the Undertaker and he was like, what the fuck just happened?
Not good.
Because it wasn't supposed to happen. But if it had happened, I mean, truly, if it had happened to anybody else, I probably would have really, truly been hurt. But because it was Mick Foley and he's, crazy and slightly indestructible, I think. Like we're part of that. And so when there's nobody there, it kind of does take away, some character that the show has.
It definitely does. That's why the Thunderdome was a kind of a good meet in the middle of at least there's something.
They could do like crowd noises.
Yeah, I do remember that that first WrestleMania when it first started, the pandemic, that was awkward. They haven't figured it out yet. And you could tell they were out of their element a little bit.
They have the production ability to create, a simulation crowd and have, the crowd noises from previous shows and just kind of like do it that way.
Well, that's what like hockey and baseball is doing, and it just doesn't feel the same.
Yeah. It doesn't feel the same, but I think being able to see faces in the crowd now, even though it's like, I think it's something we've gotten pretty used to with the pandemic, and because like the Masked Singer was doing their whole wall of fans, and then like The Voice did their live whatever like watch alongs or whatever. So I think that we're getting more used to it, and it is kind of bringing that personality back into it. But it is it's definitely been difficult to watch, but I do enjoy the stuff that they're doing to push the envelope as far as production value.
Right.
Like,
well, AEW started like with having like the personnel and other wrestlers be the ones in the crowd, and then they just recently started bringing actual audience members at a 10% capacity because they film in Jacksonville. That's where they're stationed. So pretty much the wrestlers just stay up there, or if they,
yeah.
We're going to start having fans back because if you look at the NFL, a lot of them are doing fans, but they're also going to do. A lot of them are also doing it with like 30% capacity, spread out theater. So the people, we'll start seeing people in the stands very soon, provided nothing else happens. I would assume that Vince McMahon can't wait. Oh man, hating on the Rock and Sock?
Alfred has a really good
Okay.
point.
Oh no.
and that,
I understand what he's saying. Like, they were a great tag team. It was more comedic.
I think it was for the backstage antics and the stuff that they could do off of each other.
Yeah.
Like that, the whole comedy and the shtick that came with it. But like, I don't remember really any of the in-ring stuff.
They didn't really have any amazing matches. No, like I can't even remember who they fought for the titles when they won. The corporation, I don't know. I'd have to look that up. Who knows? They beat Ken Shamrock and Big Boss Man.
See, AEW, yeah. I believe I read this too. They did. They sold 1,000 tickets.
Yeah, and there was a whole thing on Instagram that I don't really know because I don't follow AEW. Sorry.
The Rock and Sock connection, Goldust and Booker T, Stone Cold and Kurt Angle, were they a tag team at one point? I think they were. They might have been. Who was with Power Trip? Triple H, Stone Cold. Like all those teams were just teams put together because they needed to get these guys on TV, and they weren't necessarily in the title picture at that point.
Right. Well, let's talk about APA.
Right.
They were a legit tag team, but they were also hilarious.
But I think that was Farouk and Bradshaw, and they were both playing a character at that point. So well, I don't maybe Farouk wasn't, but because Farouk's facial expressions have never changed since it was in the Nation of Domination to now. So like it was funny because they kind of played off of each other, and it was just.
I loved it how they were always playing cards and smoking cigars.
Yeah, and it was hilarious. Like Brian told me, he's like, well, Bradshaw is JBL, right? And I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, look at his face. And I'm like, are you kidding me? So like when JBL would come out with the cattle, whatever, I don't know, and all that. And he's like, yeah, that used to be Bradshaw. And I'm like, like, are you serious? I was dumbfounded. I really was. But I think mostly because the character he played as an as an acolyte, and then the APA was so much different than what he is now. So it was like, whoa. I don't know where I was going with that. I don't know if I had a point. I just was rambling, whatever.
It's okay.
Pour me another cup of coffee. I don't know.
So, I mean, there has been some really bad wrestling tag teams over the years as well. I don't know, WWE and, well, WWF had some really big misses when it came to tag teams. There was, I'm looking at this list, Head Cheese.
Oh yes, that was
terrible.
Al Snow and Steve Blackman. Oh my god.
The Hype Bros.
Oh, Mojo
Rally, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but, he came out, Zack Ryder, that's not his real name, but I'm trying. His real name is slipping my mind. He came out and said he hated being in that tag team with him. Like, despised
Matt Cardona, right?
Yeah.
Matt Cordova. I think his name's Matt Cordova. I think that's his name.
Yeah.
But really
Yeah,
nice
well,
guy.
he said he didn't much like a lot of the gimmicks.
Matt Cardona. There you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah. He loved his time in WWE, and it gave him a lot of exposure and the fans now. I mean, now he has like a toy podcast, which is like huge, and like he even like films like the action figures fighting, like in like stop motion.
Stop motion.
And, yeah.
Oh wow.
I think though, like there's something that comes from like his personality is similar to the Zack Ryder personality, is that he loves the business and it kind of oozes out of him.
I mean, remember when he was an edge head?
It was just hilarious, but it oozes out of him. He enjoys the business so much. So when he talks about wrestling, you can just tell you that he loves it. And part of the Zack Ryder character is he never took anything too seriously, but he loved every moment that he was out there. And you could tell. So I was a broski, whatever. And not just because he's a beautiful man, but because he was fun. Like, I like to watch people that are having fun. Like, I figure if you're going to do something, do it well and do it right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in wrestling, you can tell when the people enjoy it, and you can tell when they're just going through the motions. You can tell by watching every single time.
And Brian Myers, which
his partner on the podcast, right?
Right.
I don't know him as
well. You see, and that's my only issue with AEW is like I was really hoping that AEW would stay on the outside and really not sign these ex-WWE wrestlers. And it's looking like they're going down that road. They're going down that that WCW road of picking up a lot of these people who are leaving WWE. Now, Cardona, like Zack Ryder or whatever, he's a good pickup. Who else they get? Rusev?
Yeah, Rusev just showed up on Wednesday.
And all these people, we've seen all them already. You know, I mean, AEW is supposed to be different. They have plenty of people there who have not been on TV regularly. I just don't want them to get caught in picking up all these ex-WWE wrestlers. They have Luke Harper. I'm forgetting the regular names. It doesn't matter, but
I think I see what you're saying though, because we worry about them picking up those other people and then them not doing or showcasing anything new,
right.
And then it's just based on their name.
I do love though, like the whole storyline with Jericho and Orange Cassidy. That I think that's a brilliant storyline. It's nice to see somebody that is big on the indie circuit working with the GOAT, Jericho, you know.
I think Jericho's whole reason, like I don't think Jericho doesn't need anybody to be successful at this point. He's proven himself. He's proven himself in both realms, like his music and in the ring. But I think that his whole goal was to kind of be that, like, the headliner for a while to get them started, to get them ready.
Yeah.
And then, you know, it's fun to watch him just do what he does. Because essentially, Chris Jericho just runs his mouth. I mean, like, he's really good at that.
Yeah.
That's all right. It happens.
Internet. So it was good. It's fun to watch Chris Jericho
on
AEW, but I'm not.
This is exactly.
He's my favorite.
Yeah. He doesn't need wrestling anymore. I mean, he doesn't even need the money. This is.
No.
He's just bringing everybody up for something that he loves, and he knows they love it too.
I mean, when you got like 20 plus years in the business, you know, that's a lot of experience you can give to these young timers.
When he talks about like the trust that you have to have as being to be able to do your own stuff. Like,
is that true? Jericho is your favorite of all time?
Yeah, that's my favorite wrestler, and nobody even close.
In a lot of ways, he's pretty much untouchable. I mean, he is incredible on the mic. He's good. He's incredible in the ring.
Plus, when I used to cheat in my video game WCW Revenge on N64, I'm a lion tamer, and nobody can break that hold. So I would always use Chris Jericho.
You still have the N64? You still play that game?
I wish I still had it. I use it as a modulator on my PC, but I don't have an actual N64. I wish.
We were at the Lakeland Mall at that store. They had an N64.
I want to get one so bad. It's such an unnecessary buy right now. I should have bought it. I should have bought it when I was getting
an N64. It's GoldenEye for me.
Okay, can I just give you a 5 because I love that game?
Yeah. So Jericho, as you said, he's awesome on the mic. He can wrestle in the ring. He's a great person out of the ring. He's everything. I like The Rock as well, but nobody's better than Jericho for the business at the moment. And even if he left AEW right now, WWE would still sign him back. Guaranteed.
Yeah.
No matter what he says about them, no matter what he throws. If you ever look at his Facebook and his Twitter, he's throwing shade at WWE all the time.
But I think that comes with a little bit of an understanding that he is going to speak out for, the little guy, and that what CM Punk was saying 10 years ago isn't much of a lie. And he did say, because he had, what's his name?
Well, he had
Dean Ambrose.
Moxley.
When Moxley was on his podcast, they talked about the freedom to choose their gimmicks and to be trusted to put something, good out there. And that, Moxley always felt like he was being shafted because he played the crazy, stupid guy. And I mean, I think they're giving him a little bit more freedom in AEW, but they're still doing, very gimmicky stuff over there. So I don't think, I think he's coming to his own over there, but.
And like, even just being around it and I know so many wrestlers. The thing about the wrestling business is it changes and it never changes at the same time.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's the issue that we're going through with the people our age versus like my kids. My son's favorite wrestler, John Cena. He don't care about nobody else. And why is that? Because honestly, wrestling's for kids. Like it is. That we've seen the same story 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 times throughout our whole life. But for my son, he watched it. He's like, dang, like he for real came from a grave. The Undertaker is just new to him, and it's hard to get that kind of magic back as you get older. You start looking at it, you start going on the forums and knowing who the tag teams are, and you lose that magic. And you always, I think Vince McMahon, he knows wrestling is for kids. It really, truly is. It's for families. The Attitude Era was what it was, and that's why my mom would never take me to anything during it.
I think the Attitude Era was like just their answer to WCW because they were in tight competition. And now there's, not really competition out there. If you're a wrestling fan, it's great to be a fan right now just because there's so many options. But in competition, I don't call AEW really competition because they're doing the same mistakes WCW did in 2000. So
doesn't it look like they're doing that a little bit? I love Luke Harper's great, Brody Lee, but do you need Brody Lee? You don't need Brody Lee. You don't need Brody. Like Dean Ambrose, Moxley, that makes sense. He was a champion. He can hold it down. Cody Rhodes, you're good. You need to see wrestlers who we don't normally see. That's the key. We want new. We don't want to see. If I see Brody Lee versus Zack Ryder, we saw that on WWE Superstars 1,000 times. Like,
Yeah.
they're not doing anything new.
I know you're not familiar with this team, but this, I think, was good. This was a good team.
Oh, okay.
Right.
I kind of know what they're talking about. But I mean, I feel bad like being on a wrestling podcast and I don't watch AEW, but it's not because I'm throwing shade or because I hate on anything. It's just like I don't have time. And for me, like I truly pick and choose even what I want to watch with the WWE too. So
Right.
if it's not a draw for me, then I'm not really paying attention to it.
Or if it doesn't have NXT.
Okay. Well, they left NXT up there. Like, they're going to have to make another development brand because now NXT isn't a development brand. It's another show.
Yeah, but NXT is still fire, man.
I think great. That was another opportunity for us to see people who we didn't get to see that much, or to see it, and now they got like, oh man, it's slipping. Who's the champ? Adam Cole.
No, Adam Cole is not the champ. It's Finn Balor's the champ.
Right, that's right.
But I see what he's saying though, because Finn Balor was on WWE for a long time, then went back to NXT. So now NXT is in a place where you're seeing new talent or talent we haven't seen. We're seeing the guys come back because NXT is their brand and they want to stay there because they can get the airplay that they may or may not be getting on WWE, which is understandable. But maybe they'd rather work. I mean, this is just me saying whatever, but maybe they'd rather work with Triple H. Like, to be completely honest, maybe they'd rather work with Triple H and Stephanie.
I mean, the whole NXT championship thing right now is a temporary thing because Karrion Kross would be champion, but he got injured in that match with Keith Lee at NXT 30.
Mm-hmm.
So it was going to be either Adam Cole or Finn Balor, carrying that title temporary right now.
But I see what Hennessy's saying though, is that it just becomes another place for them to have the big guys that are taking airtime for everybody else.
Charger. Like they're gonna have to make like when we watch NXT locally, we see them on television. We don't see them on television anymore. They rocking over there.
I'm shushing the children because they're loud. Apparently, they didn't realize that we were still live and that they should not be playing video games in our super tiny house where you can hear everything.
But speaking of NXT, Hennessy, what do you think of Undisputed Era and the tag team of Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish?
What do I think for what?
Undisputed Era, Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly as a tag team.
Okay, yeah, they've been a team for forever though, haven't they?
Because they were ROH. They were called, I believe, Red Dragon.
Right. So they're great. Like, it's not even an issue of the talent NXT has. Like, why is their name Red Dragon? I'm like, why is their name skipping my mind right now? Who replaced them when he got hurt? Which one tore his ACL? Bobby Fish?
Yeah, and then they the whole thing, like before they all came, there was the rumor that they were going to have an ROH type group. So it was Adam Cole and then of course Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly, and then they added now his name. Yeah, now his name's
Johnny Knoxville. I don't know why I want to say Johnny Knoxville. It's not Johnny Knoxville. Oh man, they only added him because Fish got hurt.
Yeah, I brain freeze on his name, and he's excellent in the ring.
I don't know who you're talking about.
It'll come to me. I'm sure.
Face,
I'm sure Mike knows who I'm talking about.
But
I can't even
read that comment about the writer.
Yes,
Roderick.
Roderick's
Right, thank you. I can't remember his freaking name, man. I didn't know that all these guys are like 5'10".
Yeah, but like that was the whole like thing when they attacked Drew McIntyre. The whole thing was spreading across the dirt sheets that there was going to be an ROH group, and well, this is what Undisputed Era is because they were very popular in ROH. And I don't know if you follow either Adam Cole or Finn Balor on Instagram or Facebook, Twitter, whatever. Their exchange has been actually pretty good. You know,
I haven't been looking at Finn Balor that much.
I mean, they did the whole like thing backstage, and
I stopped paying attention to Finn Balor, man, when he got sent down. I was like, they're getting rid of this dude. It looks like.
No, man, he's been having great matches. Another person, you know, freaking the Velveteen Dream, who came from a tag team outside of NXT. It was him and Leo Rush.
Yeah,
they were a team in Maryland.
So we missed this in the chat though. Like I don't know what he was talking about. It says great wrestler and a hell of a book writer too. I don't know if that was like when I was talking about Mick Foley.
Yeah.
Thought-provoking opinion about wrestling is for kids in comparison with how one sees things from being an adult to how a younger person sees things. So he's giving you kudos there because like my kids don't watch probably not nearly as much as we do, but they enjoy NXT much more than they enjoy, I think, WWE.
Wow. Okay.
I think it all depends on the characters too.
If you ever get an opportunity,
kids are active and crazy, but
I mean, our kids are 6 and 9, so
I think NXT is a fun draw. Like I think even Shane talks about NXT more than he talks about
Raw or
SmackDown. And I think maybe that's because they're growing up with that brand. Like maybe the same way we feel about certain things too. Like
we grew up with Hogan.
We grew up with Hogan, and you know, even really like I figured like I kind of grew up with the people like slightly after Hogan. You know, like I grew up with like more the guys that came up in the 90s because I wasn't watching in the 80s when I was a much younger kid. Like
in the 80s and 90s, it was flashy costumes out of like off the wall characters, you know, just as off the wall storylines. And I don't know if that's the same now in wrestling as then, but I don't know. Like I guess because when I was a kid watching wrestling, I wanted to be a wrestler because of all the really cool outfits. It was the closest thing to superheroes that we got.
So Mike, you started watching in '88. Nice. I think my first wrestling moment that I remember was probably right around WrestleMania 1. Right around that time. So what was that? 84, 85?
I don't know. I was 4. I don't know. I should have wrestling.
I was a Hulk Hogan guy. Like I thought that Sergeant Slaughter. I never knew the Sergeant Slaughter that wasn't the Iraq Sergeant Slaughter until like until late 90s. And I always thought he was the Hogan. That's when I started watching it, when Hogan was fighting Sergeant Slaughter at the time. So I was like, he's an American? I never knew he was American until when Vince McMahon started bringing him out with the corporation. I thought he was super bad. Like I said, for kids, I thought he was bad. I thought he was from Iraq.
Yeah.
you know, it's funny though, because when we talk about like the guys that, you know, we all time love and people are like super Hogan fans, like I'm not, I never was. And mostly because I like to see guys that can actually wrestle. So while I love John Cena and I love him on the mic and I love kids, I just don't think he's a very good wrestler.
I don't know, man.
I love me some John Cena.
Even with AJ Styles or
But I'm
Roman
telling
Reigns?
you, like there are some people that you bring out the best in people. So okay, fine. So he's in a match with whoever. I think it's a better match than if he is like there's some that I just don't think he was very good wrestling.
The matches he had with Edge, John Cena and Edge, were great.
I loved his movies.
I mean, I'm not a Cena hater, but I just don't feel like he's that kind of wrestler. You know, like
he's somebody who was a draw. You know, like if you looked at, he was the draw. Now, when he first came in, those first couple years until he changed his gimmick completely to hustle, loyalty, respect, he had some really good matches. He really did. And it wasn't just, you can't see me or I see you or whatever. After he became kind of like Hogan and his matches kind of became 1, 2, 3, 4, hit you with the punch, F you, I win. Yeah, it got a little stagnant for a while.
So, and I'm not a hater by any stretch. Like I think that there's some very positive things that he brought to the post Attitude Era, as far as like being there for kids and being a kid friendly talent. Like I think that was part of the whole hustle, loyalty, respect, you know, idea. But I also know that Vince really likes big dudes, and they don't always come with a lot of skill.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you know, he's a big guy. He likes the big guy. Look at Drew McIntyre. He came back 100 pounds heavier. He's like, oh, look at you. You're a big guy now. He always did like Drew McIntyre for being tall. Anyway. And then he actually grew into it. But yeah, he likes the big boys, which is why all the little guys are on NXT.
Yeah.
Drew, though, Drew is a fantastic wrestler. Like,
he is much better now than I think he was before. But I think like
there's Evolve is on the network now, so we can watch some of his matches. Like he has the match with Keith Lee before Keith Lee came in. We can watch.
Well, the only reason I'm saying that is that I felt like before he came back, like before he got fired that first time, and he was supposed to be like the guy. He was supposed to be the guy. Like I kind of felt like it became like his ego was bigger than he could, you know, muster, and that a lot of what was happening in the ring was just ego, and it wasn't really talent. And so when he got humbled and then had to go do his due diligence, you know, in the real world of, you know, like falling from grace kind of, and coming back, I think that there's a whole nother like life that got breathed into that it became kind of like he was more fun, you know, to watch now because he is doing it for the right reasons. Like I kind of felt like he wasn't back then, and now he's doing it for the right reasons. It's way more fun. Do not mess up Mexico.
Hold on. Okay. Here, I want to jump into something. Let's talk about a tag team that are from your home state and that are a great tag team. Let's talk about the Steiner brothers.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
Before Big Papa, when there was Scott Steiner and the dog-faced gremlin, Rick Steiner. That's what they call them.
I don't really understand that. I guess I don't understand that because it's kind of how everybody that's muscly in Michigan looks like. So I don't get.
Is that a common thing in Michigan?
Whatever.
It's an actual wrestling, like college wrestling term.
Okay, well, I'm not a college wrestling fan, so I wouldn't know that. But I like them as their later stuff, like not necessarily before he was Big Papa Pump, but like because I wasn't watching a lot of WCW. I mean, I didn't watch a lot of WCW in the first place, but I think 97, 98 is about all the WCW.
Yeah.
But I think that they were a pretty fantastic draw for the early 90s, and it gave a lot of people hope for a couple of guys that were breaking into the business the way they were. Like they were good,
and they were actual brothers, and like they worked as a tag team. Like that is the definition of a tag team. Like the tags, the double teams. And I mean, they were suplex machines.
But I think like the way they work together is like a lot of how the Hardys work together, which is a lot of how
that was a great match.
I remember that match. But I think
WCW or was that in WWF?
If they were called they did both.
It's a WWF though, because the Road Warriors they weren't in WCW, were they?
Yeah, they were. They were in almost every promotion.
Okay, I don't know what I did to my neck.
Because that's the thing, like the Steiner brothers were in the WWF like in the early 90s.
Right.
And then in the mid 90s, they were in WCW when WCW had a lot of great teams. The Nasty Boys, Harlem Heat.
Mm-hmm.
They had the Steiner brothers, the Outsiders came at that point.
Yeah.
They had Public Enemy.
Who
was Public Enemy?
They came out with the tables raising the roof.
Yeah, they came out the tables. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
They didn't look like they should be raising the roof, but
dude, if we're gonna talk about WCW and tag teams, Harlem Heat.
Yeah, that's the best tag team there was. That's the best.
Best WCW tag team of all time, probably.
Yeah.
Yep.
And another one where they worked really well together silently, like they just kind of like they had a groove. They knew, and even though Booker T was definitely way more like
he was like if you like when you talked about Street Profit. What's his name slipping my mind now? Not Montez Ford. The skinny dude?
Dawkins.
Right. He's the one. Well, he's the skinny one, right?
Montez Ford is the one that talks all the time.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Montez Ford, Booker T.
Yeah, he's and you know what? He's married to Bianca Belair.
Hot damn.
You know, they're just always the one who you look at the tag team. A lot of times you're like, all right, that's the future star, and then that's the guy who holding him up. Ford, the skinny one, right? Montez Ford, the skinny one. He's Kofi Kingston. He's the star, but you need both of them.
Well, and I think that's part of what solidifies it too, because like like at first, because like when Kofi Kingston was
from Jamaica,
well, okay, but like Kofi Kingston and Big E and Xavier Woods,
right?
When they're the New Day, they tag team as anytime they're tag teaming, it's always Kofi is the breakout star and Big E is the one that was generally silent. And now that he actually has like a place in the comedy trio, that they don't fit in that mold anymore. But definitely, like you knew Booker T was gonna be big when he was that promo that
he still regrets that promo, but
I think that it's not fair for him to regret it though. Like I think that was a huge mark for the time.
Okay, so if you don't remember, it's the promo that Harlem Heat with Sherry, they were talking about Hulk Hogan, and in the heat of the moment, with Mean Gene, Booker T goes, "And Hogan, we're coming for you, nigga." And
it was, and then he broke character as soon as he said it.
Yeah, he's like,
and he's like,
Mean Gene
just kept going, like the competent
Yeah, and then and
I cannot talk.
And the way the camera is, you see Sherry come up to him and go
right,
like
right.
his ear.
You like calm down.
And it's like everybody just kind of a
yeah, and yeah, and it's so funny because it's a meme now. Like you can find the
yeah, well, I use it all the time. It's my favorite one.
I think he is probably one of my favorite WCW wrestlers.
I think if he would have just ran with it, I think it wouldn't have been such a big deal. But the moment that he regretted it,
well, the thing is, and it's so funny because they're not even from Harlem; they're from Texas,
right?
And so, like,
it's already a racist name,
like Harlem, and they're like hard, and well,
I'm like, the Houston Heat would have been fine there. You know what I'm saying? Like,
exactly right.
But the thing got to be from Harlem.
But like Houston Heat doesn't roll off the tongue like Harlem Heat. So,
but I think about the 90s though. But think about the 90s and like how we would faction people off. Like people always seemed like they were grouped by certain things.
I remember 2 years ago, I made a bet with one of my homies. I was like, the WWE is going to tag team Asuka with Kerry Sagan and call them the Land of the Rising Sun. I guarantee you. And then that's not what they called them, but it was close enough, Kabuki Warriors. So I went ahead and took that $10 that he owed me. Because we saw it coming. We knew it was coming. We knew Shinkai. What is he with? Shinkai is with, what are they, the nation of superpowers or whatever they're going. I don't even know what they are. They got another one of the continental stables going on.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Oh, yeah.
Shinkai, Sami Zayn. Aren't they in a stable right now? Shinkai, Sami Zayn.
Shinsuke, Cesaro, and Sami Zayn.
Right.
Which is just funny because they don't have anything.
They never had nothing for Shinkai ever.
I'm like, okay. Like,
let's give him a belt. Let's give him a title. Ever.
It's like which one of these things is not like
Ebony experience? That's right. I remember they were called that. I mean, I go by the Hennessy Williams experience, so I can't talk. I can't talk about the Viking Raider experience.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. They came from New Japan. They were called the War Raiders.
Which was fun.
No, they were called War Machine. And they didn't want to have a lawsuit with Marvel, so they changed the name to War Raiders. And then they became the Viking Experience, and now they're the Viking Raider.
They messed them up because that's a good tag team.
They are a great tag team.
They messed them up. They have no credibility because they can't get their name right.
Can I just say the things that they've been doing with the Street Profits and the whole the ninjas and stuff have been hilarious.
I actually stopped paying attention to that a little bit. I haven't even watched that in a while.
I just enjoy
the
listening. I just enjoy listening to Montez Ford go over the top and have Dawkins be like, yeah.
Yeah. Dude, the whole Red Cup thing, though. I mean, that it took off. Did you ever think that it would take off? Like you see fans, like when there were fans.
That one. No.
Yes, one time there was
fans.
fans.
I remember going to NXT and we all had them Red Cups in the crowd. They were bumping. They've been. I did not think they were, like I said, I didn't think they were going to be as successful on.
Since you're in Orlando, right? Or the Orlando area?
They what?
You live in Orlando, right?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so how many times have you been to an NXT event?
I haven't been a lot lately, obviously, for whatever reason. But I used to go all the time, 8 or 9 times.
Because tickets are cheap. They're like $10, $20.
$10 ticket. To go to the show at Full Sail, you need to. That one's a little bit harder to get into sometimes. I've only been there twice. But all the surrounding shows, at the Armory, or if you go to Tampa, or wherever, $10, $15 if you want to sit in the front row. I used to go all the time. So like I remember when Finn Balor just started. I remember when Baron Corbin had just started. And one of my buddies was it Kona Reeves. He doesn't wrestle hardly that much anymore, but I worked with him for a long time, so I would see him. That's why I'm like NXT had such a great following locally with the people who weren't on television all the time, and it's like now they like have to split that brand again
Yeah.
just because the people who were getting exposed before they're not on television. It's another show. It's a third show because NXT is awesome. Like it really is.
Yeah, we were. If you remember, it was a couple years ago when it was Asuka and in the was a Falls Count Anywhere match with the Scottish chick. Oh, crazy girl. Nikki Cross. For the women's championship. We were right next at Full Sail. We were right next to the announcer table. So we got to see when they broke through the announcing table, and
it was there. I don't know. I just like
it was fun.
I very much like NXT's style of just their style. I enjoy it just because it's a lot more fast paced, and
that's what I was gonna say. It moves faster. It really does move faster.
Yeah.
And the tickets for the live events, and even at Full Sail are decent. I mean, if you want ringside, like compared to like Raw or SmackDown, ringside is $100.
Yeah, but so. you can't touch ringside tickets at Raw and SmackDown unless you're like sitting on Ticketmaster the day they go on sale.
Yeah,
like you can't touch them, and then you're gonna pay out the nose a pretty penny for them. And I just like I still think being there is still kind of the thing. Like when it doesn't matter where you're sitting, because I've sat in all different places for both WCW and WWE, and I still think that some of the most fun have been our nosebleed seats where, we were like,
yeah,
everybody was this big, but it was the room that kind of like got you involved.
We had seats for SmackDown after WrestleMania, and we had pretty good seats, and they weren't expensive.
No,
I was there too. I was in the nosebleeds for that night, the night Shinkai debuted.
Yeah. We were in the middle somewhere. It wasn't ringside.
We were on the not the floor, but like the first level to the floor. So like the ring was like right there though.
Yeah, but it was good seats because you could see everything.
Yeah, because
when you sit on the floor, they're still kind of shitty seats if they're not front row.
Right, but where we were sitting, we were facing the ring, but the ramp was right there, so we were like facing right on.
Okay.
So we saw when the guy came out with the violin, and
that is pretty wild. That was
and then he changed his whole intro to
like at that time, like the pop was so loud, like we were deaf because people were going crazy.
And they still ain't figured out what to do with him. But you know what? He's still on television. They still use him. Whatever.
Hey, he's tag team champion on SmackDown. So
I guess whatever. Like, I mean, I think you're only as good as your pairing, really. Like personally, but
yeah,
whatever. Like,
so is there any other tag teams that you guys would like to talk about that you remember? Like, do you have any favorite like tag team matches?
Oh,
man. You already mentioned New Age Outlaws.
I think everybody loves that triple threat tag team match between Edge, Christian, the Hardys, and the Dudleys. The TLC match?
Any TLC match, it didn't matter. I still remember whatever match it was when Jeff Hardy did the Swanton off the Titantron. And
I remember that.
And because I can remember Jim Ross commentating it, and it was just like, what is he gonna do? You know, it was the build up to it, and then he swantons, and it's like this flawless like flight down. It was like, he's gonna die.
Hey,
I still feel that way about Jeff Hardy. I think he's gonna be that guy who does something in the ring. That's it. I think he's determined to be that guy too. Like he has a whole goal to be that guy.
I just want to say before we continue talking about the tag teams, who's more crazier, Shane McMahon or Jeff Hardy?
I mean, it's Jeff, but Shane McMahon's pretty bad.
Well, okay, Jeff's crazy because he actually has skills, though. Like Jeff Hardy is like.
Are you saying Shane doesn't have skills?
I'm not saying that, but I'm saying, okay, so at the Broken Tailgate party where we were watching them, I met both of the guys, and I had my picture taken with the boys and Jeff Hardy because I love Jeff Hardy, and so I said, well, these two are going to be our next generation of backyard wrestlers because they act like lunatics. And he's like, that's awesome. And I went, no, it's not. And he laughed so hard. And I was like, it's because they grew up watching Mick Foley, and Mick Foley talking about taking the mattress out and jumping off the roof of his freaking house and doing crazy shit like that. And they used to do that in North Carolina. So it's no big deal. So I think he has skills and he's willing to put himself in that position. Shane McMahon is just, I think he likes the applause. Like, I think he feeds off the crowd.
When he was fighting Test and he climbed to the top of the Titan, like the very top, and then like did I don't know what it was, like an elbow drop, I think. I mean,
I don't know.
One
of them, he just fell off of it, like got punched, and then just let go.
I mean, I don't know who's crazier. Like, I kind of feel like Shane has fewer skills as far as
Shane has more money to back him if he gets hurt.
True.
Well, we can't talk about New Jack because New Jack's whole goal in life is to end other people's lives.
Oh, New Jack.
Yeah. I love me some New Jack there, but he's crazy. He's crazier than both of them. That's a fact.
What was his whole, like, the whole gimmick was like the 187, pretty much?
The code for murder.
New Jack is crazy, bro.
But I think that's a testament to the times too. Like, I don't think New Jack could be New Jack now.
Yeah, like ECW now.
New Jack was scary.
I think New Jack still does like indie stuff.
No, he's still wrestling, yeah. Well, he like beat up an old guy like last month. He's in jail right now, I think.
Of course.
Oh no, he's talking about beating up an old guy. Okay.
No.
Sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction, right?
Shit. When you talk about then New Jack, you got to talk about Sandman, who's just as crazy.
Okay, I think he should be like legitimately committed. That man is nuts. And I feel the same way about Sid Vicious. Like, there's this line where you can kind of tell it's just a persona. And then you have the Sandman and Sid Vicious, and you don't really know if there's really a persona there. Like, I think it's just them. They're just crazy and they just want to hurt people.
He has some of the worst promos, man. The funniest, worst promos. And then I can't ever look at him properly because of when he broke his ankle against Scott Steiner.
Oh, yeah.
I remember watching that live, and I could not believe that happened.
He jumped off the top rope and his leg just
snap. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And then they're gonna show it like over and over the next night on Nitro. They like put it on a replay. What's the funniest part is Scott Steiner rolls him over so hard and puts him in the Steiner recliner as his legs broke, and I'm like, That's a Scott Steiner thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is to put you in a Steiner recliner while your legs snap in half.
Get the win when you can get the win. You're down.
No, they shouldn't have had him do that spot.
Oh man, and then he talked about Sabu. That's another crazy mofo.
Yeah.
Well, because they were all ECW, like when ECW was like real cutthroat, hardcore,
Like
crazy.
when they were strictly doing a lot of the stuff in Philly.
Yeah, like I said earlier, I always wanted to watch it. But I never could.
All that stuff.
Too much. Sabu, like I wish he had him and Terry Funk. I wish they had an opportunity to be younger when when wrestling was getting big on television, because they were already old.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Terry Funk, a fun tag match was the dumpster match between the New Age Outlaws and Cactus Jack and
I was gonna bring that one up, man.
Chainsaw Charlie.
I
Well,
love
a match. No match there. No wrestling done in that match.
Hey, Mommy, remember effing guy?
Yes.
Okay, so we've been on a What We Do in the Shadows trip.
I am either the best mother in the world or the worst mother in the world because I allow my children to watch stuff like that. But my kids really like What We Do in the Shadows. They also really enjoy Harley Quinn
Cartoon.
on the cartoon with Kaylee Cuoco voicing Harley Quinn.
Is it a cartoon or is it a movie?
It's the animated series.
It's the animated Harley Quinn series.
It's on the DC universe.
On the DC universe. And it's not for kids. It is not for kids. I will.
No.
So I'm either the best mom in the world because I watch it with my kids, or I'm the worst mom in the world, whatever. But so the kids think it's hilarious because, and Brighton says, "Mom, why is he so weird?" And I'm like, well, because Nandor's just weird. And so he's like laughing with me. So we laugh about all this silly stuff. So I'm like, so when Nandor always says fucking guy. And so now I said, that should be my phrase. Like I should just adopt it and it'd be mine. And then so Brighton now he's like, effing guy. He doesn't say it, but I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to either win Mother of the Year or...
When I was your children's age, I was watching horror movies. My mom and my aunt introduced me to the Universal monster movies, and the Mummy creeped me the frick out.
But I feel like that is pretty. Hold on a second. I feel like that's pretty tame considering, like my kid is. Oliver was 4 and he'd walk over to the shelf and say, "Daddy, can we watch this one?" And he'd point to the Puppet Master. And Brian says, "No, we can't watch that." And he says, "Why? Why can't I watch it?" Because it's a scary movie. He's like, it's got dolls in it. And so he finally gave in to him and put the movie in, and he's like, "Mommy, it's funny." And I'm like, oh my God.
I watched
Bam Bam in that cartoon too? Sorry, I'm thinking of Miracle Violence.
Favorite teams. Dusty. What? Dr. Dusty Williamson. Terry Gordy.
Yes, the Miracle Violence Connection.
That's the best name. That's the best name for a tag team. I thought Bam Bam Bigelow was on that too, right?
I don't understand the whole like this connection stuff. Like, what is that? It's either the experience or the connection. Like, I don't get it.
Or
Express, yeah.
It's just like they have a dartboard. Stuff on it. It's like, connection. Got it. There you go.
See what you won. Yeah.
People think they don't do it. Oh no, they do it. Oh my God. So it'll have like colors. It'll have generic names. And then
okay, now I'm not going to think of wrestling. I'm going to like think of the backstage because I've been in backstage parts of wrestling and I've never seen these wheels, so they must hide them when guests are backstage.
So throw a dart and see what happens.
Right. has colors, one that says like different like I don't know.
It says express, experience, connection.
Yeah.
I mean, wrestlers
There
could do
you
what
go.
drag queens do and just choose each other's names, because I think that they would be much better if they were given names rather than choosing their own names.
Just to be a fly on the wall in like the writer's room.
He does. I'm telling you that he does. I'm telling you that he thought that. Because the wrestlers will be like, he'll be like, come up with a name, and they cannot come up with a name. So
Mike,
the name he came up with is better.
Yeah.
I think it's like, I don't know.
A day in the life of Vince when he's deciding a tag team. I wonder who was a tag team today.
Well, see,
Yeah.
Vince likes
It's like
doing like the David and Goliath.
Will of the Brownies there. Let it spin. Oh yeah, there you go. Who do you fight tonight? Oh yeah, Repo Man. There it is. Repo Man, come here. Undertaker. I'm sure that was Undertaker's. For probably like 10 years, he used that for the people he fought.
Dude, when Kane and him and Taker were thrown together as a team, of course, they were brothers. I think we should call you the Brothers Destruction.
That's what he will say to me and another black guy there too. He'd probably say the same thing. Like, oh, you call you the Brothers of Destruction. Like, you already used that name. You already used Harlem Heat. Like, you already used that name.
Blister
The
ab.
Brooklyn Brothers. The Brooklyn Brothers wouldn't be back. Chocolate Milk. Chocolate Milk.
Oh my God.
Me
I always laugh though, because sometimes there would be these names that you were like,
Blister Abigail.
what?
Yeah.
Like
Breezango, that's what they were doing for a while. They just stopped even trying.
These must be the same guys that are working in Hollywood trying to come up with new movies, but they always go back, okay, let's remake this movie.
I'm like, you're not even trying no more than that.
Yeah, see, the whole thing with Alexa Bliss now, she's with The Fiend. So, yeah.
Alexa Bliss is about to be with, is she are they fall into that now? I didn't watch this past week.
Yeah, it's Alexa Bliss is now part of the Funhouse.
I think that's a good fit though. Like she's a little crazy. He's very crazy. Like,
yeah, but what?
He says they better not steal my name. They won't watch. Next week you're gonna watch and they stole your name. You should have copyrighted it. Trademark.
Chocolate milk. That's okay. I'll use chocolate milk Sunday. If somebody has that one. We'll come out as Milkman.
So
I would pay money to see that. Honestly, I would.
Old school milk with some milk in your face.
Have like the old style milkman outfits. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
So just to get off of the wrestling thing for a little bit, Hennessy, you are a comedian. How long have you been doing the whole comedy routine?
Unofficially, 14 years. I started in 2006. I burned pretty nicely, as everybody does normally in the first couple of sets. Officially since 2012, where I've actually been, hosting shows, making $10 or $15, eating some chicken wings or whatever.
What is your elevator pitch here? What is the Hennessy Williams experience?
Well, Hennessy Williams is a lot of things. Like I said, he's an embodiment of culture. He started out as a separate entity, if you will, and then people started wanting to book him for shows. So slowly I evolved into that person. I do stand-up. I do experimental music and rap. If you come to one of my shows, it's all across the board. The pandemic kind of slowed us down a little bit. I was beginning to host my own shows and have my own comedy night around Melbourne, and we'll get back to that. Um, but yeah, I did the air guitar. I was playing Guitar Hero in 2009 with my friends, and then the documentary about air guitar came on, and I said I could win that. Of course, I've been rocking out with my air guitar, bro. You know that.
How long?
I was like, I knew that I could do this, and now I'm ranked top 10 in the nation. So what you can do is if you work hard at anything, you can achieve it. Even if it is nothing but air. Nothing but air.
Nothing but air.
So, but it's fun. But the thing about air guitar is, like, I already tried to do wrestling, but the pain part and the money part wasn't what I enjoyed so much. So you can do air guitar, you can bring those elements of wrestling where you have a character, you have a persona, and now you have 60 seconds on a stage to become a rock star too. So wrestling and air guitar is a nice marriage. We're very much alike, very much alike. So yeah, that's what I do, man. I do whatever I can to be funny. The Sketchy Comedy Club is another club that I have where we write and do improv sketches, and you'll see us around town doing that as well once stuff opens up more. We just need the bars. We need the bars to open in Orlando. Yeah. Please.
Next week they are though, aren't they?
Are they? I haven't heard. Are they finally?
I guess this morning I heard that next week the bars were opening back up.
Okay, finally. That will help us tremendously.
So just to pick your brain a little bit here, who are some of your influences in comedy?
Okay, so my big three are Eddie Murphy, George Carlin, and even though she's going through a lot right now, it's Ellen DeGeneres.
Okay.
People be like, Ellen? Well, Ellen had this insane ability to write clean comedy. And clean comedy is something that you need in your repertoire. I don't care what anybody says. And to be able to talk about things that are everyday things and be as funny as she is, that's an ability that I've always wanted and tried for. Eddie Murphy for being so across the board amazing in everything that he does. And George Carlin for that cynicism I need. And the upfrontness that I need to have on stage. So I try to marry those three. I really do. Chris Tucker, Chris Rock, all those people too, but those are the big three that I look at.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, that is awesome. If you had to give a little bit of encouragement to someone that wants to come up in comedy, what would you tell them?
Just do it. The hardest part is just getting up there. Whether it's a 1 minute open mic night, 3 minute open mic night, whatever it is, write something, invite people to it, mess it up, and then go do it again. And the more comfortable you feel, that comfort just going to come with time. Not everybody's the greatest writer on earth. Not everybody's the funniest person on earth, but it doesn't matter once you get up there and now you have control. It doesn't. Sometimes people don't feel that way because you have a crowd that might boo you. Let them boo if they're gonna boo. They're not up there. So just get up there, do your material. That's what I say. Don't let anything stop you. There's plenty of opportunity, especially now with podcasts and Zoom. Do a Zoom open mic if you want to. There's plenty of those. A lot of them aren't funny, but that's okay because you're not going to be funny at first. You're not. Nobody went up there. If you are funny the first time, then your next time you're going to be horrible.
Yeah, I've had that experience.
And different stuff is funny to different people. I've done the same set 2 straight nights. The first night it was amazing. The second night I fell on my face. it doesn't happen so much anymore. But I mean, that's 8 years ago when I started, like really putting time into the craft. But also be willing to learn and listen. You know, just like wrestling, absorb other people who came before you. Humble pie is always the best slice of pie. Uh,
Now, before you go up on stage, do you memorize your sets or do you have a notebook with
Memorize it, write it down, do it again, and memorize it again. That is one of my. If you try to go up there and wing a comedy set, you better be good. You better be good. It might look like people are winging it. I don't care how good they are. They're not. They're not winging it. But if it looks like they're winging it, that's how good they are. They made it look like they brought it up off the top of their head. Because you need to rehearse it. Because comedy is also about beats. You know, there's a rhythm to it, and you know it should almost be like a song. You know, it should da 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 da, and then the break, the laugh. That's how comedy should be. It's a song.
Yeah, I mean, if you ever look at like Richard Pryor, Robin Williams, George Carlin, Eddie Murphy, like they make it look flawless. Like they all look like they're like just on the fly coming up with what they're saying. And
But I think he's talking about the rhythm. Like there's that that down where that's where the laugh is, and then you bring it back up to, and so you know you listen to. I mean, although you listen to a lot of these guys now, I don't know that people could be able to take their comedy now. Like,
well, yeah, that's one of the things. Like Dave Chappelle, I forgot to mention him. He's my number one as well. He's good at that. He's good at taking stuff that makes you uncomfortable and bringing it to a level where everybody will listen to you and still making it funny.
Well, the creators of South Park, I think, said it best. If you can't laugh at everything, then you can't laugh at nothing else.
Right.
And I think like the more open-minded you are, the less the more funny things are, because then you're like, oh yeah. Because I used to not really get Dave Chappelle. Like I just didn't get him. Like I just didn't. And we watched a special the other day and I was like, he actually is pretty funny. But I think it comes with like your experiences in your life where you're like, well, I can kind of see that. I can kind of get that. So
I never realized he was 10 years older than us.
I knew he was older than us, but like it feels like everybody.
He was around for a while, man. He was already doing comedy for a while in the early 90s.
So like when we were coming up, you know, watching probably stuff we weren't supposed to be watching, he'd already been doing it for 10 years.
Right.
So
that's the thing with Kevin Hart. Like people say, oh, Kevin Hart sucks. Kevin Hart does not suck. Kevin Hart was doing comedy for 25 years before we saw him in 2012, 2013. It was not that long, but I'm just saying. He had already had a full career before we started seeing him in movies where he decided to start taking a little bit of money. Because like I said, most comics don't make any money. You get paid $25, $50 and some free chicken wings that night. That's the pay. Like it is what it is.
Are they good chicken wings?
You might get 5 to 10 free chicken wings.
Now, damn it, I want some chicken wings.
Well, you gotta get up on stage and become a headliner, man.
Yeah. As much as people hated Pauly Shore in the 90s, the fact that his parents owned a comedy club and he learned from the best of the best is phenomenal. Like I wish I had that life where I could learn comedy from from Jerry Seinfeld, from
I think he had
George Carlin.
But he had his own take on it too. Like he took what he learned and he kind of developed it so that it would be his own kind of delivery. Like there's nobody.
That's the main thing. Is finding your voice. That's the main thing.
And I feel like there's nobody that can deliver certain stories like George Carlin. Like there's a delivery there of certain makeup that only he could deliver it. And even though some of it could be considered crass, you almost didn't realize it because of who it was delivered by.
Right. If there was two other people that could deliver like Carlin, I would have to say it would be Sam Kinison or Robin Williams.
Mm-hmm.
Kennison had that scream, but you know we always talk about his scream and we forget he did 45 minutes of other stuff during his
Mike brings up Steve Harvey. Okay, Steve Harvey is hilarious, and like, dude, you can watch Family Feud and just see that. I mean, some of the things.
Yeah.
And he's unscripted. Like all of that is improv. Like he just is really witty, and he can just come up with stuff on the fly.
And it helps having the interactions with the contestants as well.
Yeah,
like some of the answers the contestants bring up.
Well, and he's a personable, like he just gives that vibe where he's super personable, and so you kind of like see how that wit and that joke comes like from a place of just being interconnected with people. It was just he's cool.
Well, whenever we get back to life, we definitely want to come see a show. So
sure. I've had some shows that I got booked for in the last like month and a half, and then they like get canceled. Like it comes up to that day, and they're like, well, so I'm hoping, hopefully with the bars opening back up, we'll start getting some more normalcy. And then I'll feel more comfortable getting up there too. Because I've had some opportunities where I was like, nah, you're just not really doing what you need to do distance-wise for that to be a good idea right now. So yeah, I'll definitely, I post everything on the Hennessy Williams Experience on Facebook. At Mr. Henny Wills is my tag on pretty much every social media platform there is. Twitter, Instagram. I don't use Snapchat. I'm married, so no Snapchat. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, darn it.
It's okay.
My kids use Snapchat more than I do. So
the only time I use Snapchat is if there's a cute little thing to turn my cats into some like anime character.
Instagram bad enough, I'll tell you. Man. I don't know.
Well, yeah.
There's a whole new world of stuff on Instagram that I was like, I could follow all of my friends. Like I could follow my friends talking about their lives and doing like stories and stuff, and find people that were working for mental health and body positivity and everything like that. And then you got this like whole other.
Yeah, be careful typing body positivity in there. We'll see some body positivity.
Welcome to the dark web on Instagram.
Like there's a line between body positivity and the other. Like
just put in lower body leg workout. And you won't even find, you're like, oh, I'm gonna find some good workouts. You're gonna find something to work out. It won't be your legs.
Just don't take your booty.
Your legs, nah.
Oh.
So you type in cosplay.
Right?
Cosplay. All of a sudden, it's not really cosplay.
It's
let me write this down.
Like, of course, Instagram hasn't like, TikTok can't do what.
Wait, he said lower body workout.
Lower body leg workout. Just put that in. I'm about to put it in now.
Got it. Oh.
No. Yeah. Yep. There you go.
Whatever sells.
Yep. That's all. It's just girls doing squats.
Oh.
That's all it is.
All right. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on and talking tag team wrestling and learning more about your comedy.
I would definitely let you. I would definitely keep you in the loop.
All right, and what are those plugs again, so people can follow you?
At Mr. Henny Wills, so it's at Mr. Henny Henny Wills WILLZ. So at Mr. Henny Wills, or look at the Hennessy Williams Experience on Google. I pop right up. There's plenty of things that I'm involved in that have made me popular on Google. I think that's cool.
Uh, and is there a charity out there that you want to plug?
Well, Ronald McDonald House. Whenever I do any charities or I do my air guitar show, all of my money goes to Ronald McDonald House here in Orlando. Whether it be Winnie Palmer or downtown Orlando. We cook for them. We do all kinds of stuff for them. Yeah, I've been doing that. Shoot, I probably spent between my 3 kids. I probably spent a year at Ronald McDonald House living there because they were premature. So they've done a lot for me.
Well, I appreciate all the charity work that you do and your comedy. I have seen the few music videos that you've put out.
Yeah, we're rolling around nice.
Between you and Thomas, I don't know who's funnier because you both bring me to tears.
I really feel like you need to have like a comedy special night on for Hanging with Webb though for us.
Should do a
That would
variety.
be awesome.
Yeah, October 24th, we're filming that.
Oh, okay, excellent.
October 24th. Which is creeping up on us very fast. So yeah,
Wow.
we're definitely looking for people who are trying to act in that, and that's Hanging with Web show right there. That's a whole variety show that we want everybody to be a part of.
I'm working on my skit right now. Actually, I'm starting to write the script for it, and I have ideas in my
How
head.
is it
I just
really
need
going?
to.
Write them down.
TJ.
Send them in.
We need to have a skit. I want to do one.
A skit?
You know who to talk to.
I'm like, it was just the 3rd week of school, so now I'm like all immersed in, lesson plans and like teacher life again. And I'm like,
Yeah, man, life. Yeah, you know how life is. That's I was rolling along real nice. We were filming 1 or 2 shows a week, and then my partner got diagnosed with COVID-19.
Oh.
So that just took the air out the whole summer right there. And I mean, he's doing well now, but it wasn't an easy bout for him. He had some issues. So it's definitely, I'm just glad that he's okay at this point. But you know how life is, it hits you.
Yeah.
pretty much.
But this episode's been really fun. And next week we hear Milestone, episode 25, where we talk about movie soundtracks.
I love how you said it's a milestone episode. I'm like, sure. Yeah.
Hey, most podcasts make it 1 episode and then they're like, I don't even like that guy. Whoa, bye-bye.
My economy is going down.
But yeah, we're talking movie soundtracks next week. That should be fun, especially since we grew up in the 80s.
Lord, I don't even know.
So Top Gun, Flashdance,
Dirty Dancing,
Kenny
Money Talk.
Kenny Loggins talk.
dude, all the John Hughes films, Breakfast Club and 16 Candles, Pretty in Pink.
Well, and like so much of our music life was in the movies then.
Yep.
Like Don't You Forget About Me. Like I cannot separate that from the movie clip that it's attached to. Like I will always think of it. So
Yeah, we'll definitely have to have you back on in the future.
Yeah, I'll be more than happy to be back on.
All right, everyone, you guys stay safe. Until next week, you have a great weekend.